Привіт. I'm Chuck Olinik, a Ukrainian-American, baptized with the name Yaroslav. That's the name I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent. I was brought up in a Ukrainian household. All right, so my persona went to that part of the world, and for decades I've been doing research on, Eastern Europe and the Baltic and the steppes cultures and the Caucasus and the Balkans. And so I decided that I'm not going to just let this information just sit in notebooks. So I decided to put together videos and put them up on my YouTube channel in order to share the information with like-minded people, maybe people who want to develop an Eastern European persona, and that these videos could be a starting point to do further research and further development. So this topic is going to seem like it's a little off the wall. This is about Balbals, and Menhirs. Okay? Stone objects that appear all over the steppe belt of Europe and Asia, from the Dniester River, which runs through Ukraine and Moldova in the west to Mongolia in the east. And like in Ukraine, at least before the war, there were about 300 of them. A lot of them are very crude slabs with very simple schematic heads protruding from them, a few features such as eyes and breasts carved in. Some are a lot more complex. While there's a number of menhirs dotting Slavic and Armenian landscapes, this is about a particular type called the stone babe. Okay, Slavic lesson time. In Slavic languages, baba typically refers to grandmother or woman, but the exact translation varies from language to language and through the different dialects. Amongst Polish, Russian, and Czech terminology, the translation can mean many things, including fortune teller, midwife, sorceress, like Baba Yaga. Okay, so why are they called Kamienia Babe? They are anthropomorphic stone statues, maybe 1.5 feet tall to up to 12 feet in height, and they're found in the steppe belt of Europe and Asia, from the Dniester River in the west to Mongolia in the east. By the way, you may hear them referred to as Kurgan stele or Balbals, probably from a Turkic word, Balbal, meaning ancestor or grandfather. These are images that are cut from stone and installed atop, within, or around kurgans, in kurgan cemeteries, or in a double line extending from the kurgan. Okay, so these can be called a bunch of different things, right? Babe, or obelisks, or statue menhirs. Amongst Turkish groups, Balbals, which is another word that we get to use, they're usually not carved much, and they tended to represent slain warrior foes and were set up around a hero's grave, while the carved figure would represent the warrior. So yeah, I could see the disrespect thing. It's kind of like stormtroopers in Star Wars. They're all faceless, right? They're all wearing uniforms. You kill a bunch of them, yeah, you're a hero. Okay, now a lot of these stelae are found in large numbers in southern Russia and Ukraine and Prussia, southern Siberia, Central Asia, Turkey, Mongolia. Not only are they widespread, they represent about 3 millennia's worth of various cultures that are just passing through and leaving their marks. There are Sumerians, no, not Conan's guys, represented. The Sumerians of the early 1st millennium BC left a small number, like maybe 10, of distinctive stone stelae. Another 4 or 5 of these deer stones that were dating from the same time are known from the northern Caucasus. From the 7th century BC, Scythian tribes began to dominate the Pontic steppe. The Scythians were in turn displaced by the Sarmatians from the 2nd century BC, except in Crimea, where they persisted for a few centuries longer. These peoples left carefully crafted stone stelae with all features cut in deep relief. But these groups, they don't really fit in the SCA time frame, although now the time frames become very flexible. Although a bunch of us really like this stuff, including me, because I'm into Scythian things, and a lot of the artwork in my camp tends to reflect that, probably because I can draw that easier. What makes this a thing to talk about as far as SCA stuff is that these Turkic peoples of the 6th through the 13th centuries, particularly the Kumans, we can call them the Kipchaks or Polovtsians, they created a lot of the babe that decorate the landscape. And they actually served another purpose. Commonly used as grave markers, the babe were connected with cults of the dead amongst nomadic peoples. The figures are commonly in standing or sitting positions. In steppe Ukraine, most of the babe are female figures that differ from their Asiatic counterparts in their more complex and varied dress. Early Slavic stelae are a bit more primitive. There are some 30 sites in the Middle Dniester region where such anthropomorphic figures were found. The most famous of these, that's the Zabruk idol. It's like 10th century. A post measuring about 12 feet with 4 faces under a single pointed hat. And there's been an attempt to identify the faces with the gods Perun, Mokosh, Lado, and Veles. Hey, it could be the god Sviatovic. Right, now, the stone babe that we're looking at are much more of a Turkic thing here, honoring the dead. Okay, I mentioned that before. The Kalmyks, they revered Kurgan obelisks in their country as images of their ancestors. All right, and when there was a bowl held by a statue, it was to deposit a part of the ashes after the cremation of someone who was deceased, and another part was laid under the base of the statue. Starting with the Scythians and later the Kuman / Kipchak / Polovtsians, the Balbals that they built commonly showed a warrior holding a drinking horn in an upraised right hand. Many also showed a sword or dagger suspended on the warrior's belt. And if we want documentation about the stone babe, there was a European traveler, William of Rubruck, who mentioned them for the first time, I guess, in Western European writings in the 13th century, seeing them on kurgans in Kuman, Kipchak, Polovtsian country, and he reported that the Kumans installed these statues on tombs of their deceased. Okay, so a bit of period documentation. Some Kurgan obelisks are found still standing on kurgans, others are found buried in the slopes. The obelisks are made of sandstone, limestone, granite, etc. Their heights generally from about 2 feet to 11 feet, averaging about 5 feet to 6.5 feet tall. Some of them are simply stone columns with a rough image of a human face. On others, the head, with an actually narrowed neck, is clearly depicted. In most cases, not only the head is depicted, but also the body, arms, frequently both legs, and headdress and dress. On more crude statues, it's impossible to discern the sex, but mostly it's expressed pretty clearly. Men have mustaches, I hope they're men, in a costume with metal plates and belts, sometimes with a sword. Women are with bared breasts, wearing peculiar headdresses with girdles or necklaces on the neck. Over time, many of the stone babe were destroyed and they were recycled just like a lot of Roman construction or Greek construction. Hey, there's stone there, let's use it. And so the remnants of the stone bobbé were used for buildings and fences and stuff like that. However, several of the Cuman bobbé, which dated from the 9th to the 13th centuries, that were located at the Ukrainian side of Izum, were destroyed by Russian forces when Russia invaded in 2022, and the Russians occupied that area for 6 months. Okay, so that's it on the stone grandmothers. And I've got to confess, part of the reason I started looking at these, aside from the fact that I just think they're really cool, and in the landscape of the steppes, these must have served as great landmarks. I have this tree trunk in my backyard that I was thinking of initially turning into a statue of Perun, which I still may do that. But looking at the stone bobbin, really looking at the idea of creating one of those. Hey, maybe I'll do Perun on one side and one of the stone bobbin on the other. Who knows? Anyway, until the next time, do pobacenia.